So in this video, I'm going to talk about something a little bit more personal, but which is hopefully relatable to you and that you can use as advice to try and avoid the catastrophic mistakes that I made, but also try and replicate some of the good decisions I made. I don't only make bad decisions, contrary to popular belief, but let's go through this. Let's talk about how I quit my job to become a professional photographer. And I'm going to talk about everything. I'm going to talk about money. I'm going to talk about the bad stuff. I'm going to talk about my age at any given time and all of that and my past leading up to it. So leading up to being a photographer, I was a cyclist. Before that, I was a violinist. And I did a degree in sports science. I went away and lived in China for a bit. I worked over there, came back, I did a master's. And then towards the end of my master's, I picked up a camera and I was like, this is fun. And I went and shot a magazine cover of McFly. And it was someone had double booked themselves and they went, Scott, can you cover for me? I'd never done anything like it before. I'd never even owned a digital camera. I had to borrow all the kit. They set it up. I just clicked the button. And then I saw how much I got paid to do something, which I thought was very fun. And I thought, well, I'd like some of that. Sounds much more excitable than science. That was in 2009. And I didn't leave my job for quite some time after that. So I went off and I got a job. I worked some pretty boring jobs. I worked some pretty exciting jobs. I did some work for UK Border Patrol, where I was working on informatics and statistics. I did some work building systems. I then worked for an outsourcing company who built particular bits of software. I worked as a project manager. And towards the end of working as a project manager, I was sort of getting towards 24, maybe 25. And I realized that I hated going to work. I woke up and just thought, I don't want to do this every single day. So I quit. Now, when I quit, there was a bit of an issue at work in which I either had to move and do something different or they were going to fire me anyway. So I sort of jumped before I was pushed, I guess, is the best way, because I had no intention of doing the other thing. But there we go. So I left my job. I was mid-20s. I had no savings. I maybe had a few £100s in my bank account. I was single. I lived in a house by myself that I rented. And I owned 2 cameras. I had a 17-40, 70-200, an 85 and a 35mm prime, 3 or 4 speed lights. That was it. It was a pretty simple setup. I then went and rented a studio space because I had a client who came along who wanted me to shoot in the studio. I told him I had a studio. I didn't. I employed a manager who was very helpful, very good for me at the time, especially as I was still quite young and I quite enjoyed partying. She sort of kept the reins on and made sure that we headed in some form of direction rather than just a big partying binge. And my career was very bad at the start. There was no marketing, there was no direction. I didn't even have a niche. I just took pictures. I shot a DVD for a music video, like a live show. I'd shoot a wedding, I'd shoot headshots, I'd go and do business photos, food photos, whatever it was, I'd shoot it. Product stuff, the whole shebang. It was a nightmare. I made enough money to get by, but it was tight, it was stressful, and it wasn't that enjoyable. Now, towards the end of my stay at that particular studio, I had started to get some momentum going up, and I was sort of getting towards late 20s. I'd shot some good book covers, I'd shot some big ad campaigns, and I decided to move into the warehouse I'm in now. And I moved in here with 2 friends at the time, which was a huge mistake because everyone works differently, everyone has different ethics, everyone has different drives and all the rest of it. I like to work a lot, they like to work differently, and anyway, it didn't work out, and we all ended up going our separate ways. I kept the studio, and I rebuilt it the way I wanted it to be, and sort of over the time got it to this point. I also signed for a really good agent, Graham, who's been really looking after me well over the years, and he has really helped steer my career in a good direction. He offers great advice, and he negotiates shoots and contracts really well. Now, for the first few years of being a photographer, I was literally just making rent on the studio and just getting by living. Being single, obviously your bills are high and everything, there's no one to split it with, and it's an expensive lifestyle. Not that I think you should get married or have a partner just to reduce your costs. That would be a really bad mistake. But I'm just sort of letting you know about the financial difficulties I had. It was stressful. I cycled to work. I couldn't drive. I only recently learned to drive, actually. And it was stressful, but I did enjoy waking up every morning. Every morning I woke up, I was like, great, we're going to go to the studio. I'll cycle down to the studio. I lived in quite a sort of liberal lefty area of my city. It was a very nice area. Cycled to a beautiful park in the morning, got to my studio, made my coffee, did my work. It was a nice little way to work. Since then, things have changed. There's children, there's a partner, there's a lot of extra stuff that goes on. And my biggest change is that my work has just increased in value. And the reason it increased in value is because I niched down and niched down and niched down until now when people need my work, they know it's me that does it. So I just get the phone call. Marketing's far easier because I don't really have to market myself. They know what I do and they know if they need me. And if they don't need me as well, which is good because there's nothing worse than being booked for the wrong job. If I was going to do this all again, I would do it very differently. I would have saved up some money first, at least a year's worth of income. And I could have done that with the job I had. I just didn't because I was young and stupid. I partied too hard. But I'd definitely save a year's salary up. But in the current climate, there's going to be a lot of people who suddenly find themselves without a job and without savings, and that this is perhaps the way that they're going to be able to pay their bills, pay their rent, their mortgage, their food, whatever it may be. So it is perfectly doable. But if you're going to go down that route, you want to reduce all your overheads. One of the first things I do every year is I go into the bank and I cancel every transaction from my bank account, bar house bills. And then I don't renew them until I need them. Simply because over the course of a year, you subscribe to all these things and you buy all these different services. And before you know it, you've got £1,000 a month going out on stuff that you don't even use. So I'm a big fan of just constantly cancelling everything and making sure that I'm not paying for anything I don't need, shopping around. It's like with Adobe. If you think they're too expensive, tell them they're too expensive. They'll reduce your bill for you. You know, there's lots of ways that you can save money and things like that. My other advice would be that if you are suddenly finding yourself in a position where you need to be a photographer, if you're desperate for work, it's really easy to go, I do everything. I do product, I do headshot, I do landscape, whatever it may be, I do everything. And this will be the biggest thorn in your side. This will make your career tank. And you need to have some way of putting out there what you are and who you are. And your value will increase and your bookings will increase as well. There's a weird flash in the background then. That is not to say that you don't do these other things. If somebody offered me some money to go and do something, I'd do it. I just wouldn't tell people about it. If someone said, can you come do my business headshots? For sure. If you're paying a good fee, I'll come and do them. It's not on my Instagram. It's not on my website. I won't put them on there. It's very clear what I do for my website and for my Instagram, my social media, and for my portfolio. My portfolio, I've got a cheap printout way there. Let's get rid of my personal details off the front. This is just a quick printout when I'm doing like random work. Happens to be on my tether trolley. My portfolio is very much that I shoot food. So skim through a few pages. Okay, more food. These are the worst. Oh, we're dropping it everywhere. You know, these are the worst prints in the world. But you can see, I shoot food. This is what I do. It's all food. I shot some headshots last month. I made some money. You've got to make money. But you need to put forward who you are and what you do first. And that's so important. And it's so scary not to do that. And my career was held back for so long because of that. Now, I can't ever imagine going back to having a job, having done this now. It is a really fun career. It's a really enjoyable career. But it's only enjoyable if you get the numbers sorted, if you have your outgoings minimized. I drive a really cheap car. My T-shirts cost a couple of pounds. I only wear black T-shirts, you might have noticed. I don't have a fancy wardrobe. I don't own anything. I just do what I do. And I really enjoy it. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I'd much rather have the minimalist lifestyle in terms of possessions and outgoings and be able to do this all day and hang out in my studio with my cat Moggy and, you know, go home to my girlfriend whenever I want to, go and see the kids' plays at school if I want to. Having that freedom is really important to me. But if you want to have all the fancy stuff, starting this career might not be the best plan. Sure, in 10 years' time you can do it, but when you're starting out, you've got to hustle, you've got to grind, you've got to cut your overheads down, and you've just got to crack on with it. I hope this is of use to anyone who's currently finding themselves in a position where they've lost their job or their job no longer exists because of the current crisis. Or if you're thinking of going into it, that you now know, you know, saving up for a year is going to really change your life. There'll be no sleepless nights for that first year, and you can keep banking that money and roll it over until you've got a nice cushion going on. If you're enjoying these videos, do hit subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.